After a defeat to my beloved Wales, we bid a fond farewell to the international break and turn our attention back to the domestic football. We'll preview the Premier League title showdown, that is Manchester City versus Arsenal, before Sam provides a tipping feast this Easter weekend. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Betting Expert Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How you doing today, man?
Hello, Dan. Yes, very good, thank you. More importantly, after last night, how are you doing? Are you okay?
Is this podcast just going to turn into a therapy session after
if you need
defeat?
it,
I kind of do. No, it's it was rough. It was quite rough, especially losing on penalties. I actually can't remember the last time I watched Wales in a penalty shootout, if I ever have, and they're tense enough to begin with, let alone if your nation's hopes are on the line.
It's just the worst way to go, especially when, there's the carrot is so big that's dangling in front of you. It's just the worst thing ever. So I do not envy you at all. I didn't actually watch the game. How did it go? Was it a deserved draw after 90 minutes? Or
yeah, I think Wales played quite well, to be honest. It played Finland last week, won the match comfortably. It was a really, really good performance. Some lineup changes for this one. Kiefer Moore came in, which I was quite surprised at. I think Wales generally look a lot better without him in the team, and he's a much better battering ram plan B. But he did okay, actually. He had a couple of good chances. Szczesny pulled off a few fantastic saves to keep Kiefer Moore out. He had a few really good headers in the match that Szczesny tipped behind, but which made the difference, really. There weren't too many chances in the game, but it was quite a good watch, to be honest. Yeah, it was a pretty good game. Were you watching?
I wish I'd watched it, to be honest, Dan. I switched over for like 10 minutes, but it was all in Welsh, obviously.
Yeah.
And after 10 minutes, I don't. Unfortunately, I need to brush up on my Welsh. So, I watched it for about 10 minutes. I thought I probably should turn back and watch England, really. But wish I watched Wales, England. Not great. Not really a great international break. Jude Bellingham got a last-minute go to kind of save our blushes, really. But yeah, not as bad as Wales, I suppose, but definitely not the best international break.
Not a good international break. So speaking about England a little bit more, you mentioned the game there. We talked about the England squad for the Euros. We're not going to talk about the Wales squad for the Euros, so let's just stick on England. Did any players over the international break kind of play their way into favour? And did anyone play their way out of favour? Lewis Dunk comes to mind?
Yeah, I'd lean more to the side of saying that last night was a poor result than not. Two big errors led to two Yuri Tielemans strikes from Pickford and Dunk. The latter really not impressing, like you said, during the international break. Ben Chilwell probably fits into that category too. I'm amazed Branthwaite got no minutes over the break. Stones goes off injured yesterday, and there's a left-footed centre-back in top form who loves to tackle, decent in the air, fast enough to kind of quell any concerns in behind. And Southgate brings on Lewis Dunk, who was poor against Brazil, who's 32 years old and who Southgate knows an awful lot about. So that was a bit frustrating. I mean, Southgate at times doesn't really help himself. Cole Palmer got no minutes either, which is a shame. He brought Anthony Gordon on with 10 minutes to go yesterday, and it just felt like, why not bring Cole Palmer on, see what he can do, see how he handles himself in the final 10-15. In a positive light, Jarrod Bowen looked really, really lively last night. Southgate will have him at the forefront of his mind when picking the next England squad, I'm sure. Ivan Toney was good, really good. He was involved throughout, especially in the first half. His hold-up and link-up play is of the standard to really trouble teams. We saw, especially in the first half, how he occupied one or two defenders when the ball was fizzed into him, which left plenty of space in behind for the likes of Bowen to get on the ball and make things happen. Make things happen. He's really clever, Toney. He's got a bit of something else in his locker compared to Watkins. There was a passage of play where it was like pinged into him and he kind of just let it run through his legs and then spun, and it opened up a whole new passage of play, which was much more threatening than the last, and obviously got on the score sheet too from the penalty spot. A speciality of his, and he didn't really look phased with that England shirt on, and I didn't think he would. So in terms of putting or staking a claim, I think definitely Bowen and Toney last night. Okay, more so than anyone.
I mean, you're carrying on with your Toney agenda after that bet last week for him to make the squad.
Yeah, massively. I don't think I'm just saying this because I've got a bet on him. I really feel that he offers a bit more than Watkins, and I don't want to be too disparaging to Watkins because he has been so good this season, and he probably deserves a spot in the England squad. I just feel that at international level, there's probably more opportunities for Ollie Watkins to go missing a bit, but I don't think that's the case with Toney because he wants to get involved no matter what, and he's got the skill set to get involved, bring others into play. Whereas Watkins he's more of a like play on the shoulder, waiting for that threaded through ball type of player, and at international level when we're looking at probably getting through a low block in most games, I just feel like Toney probably offers a little bit more. And if Southgate has to pick just two strikers, which it looks like that's the rhetoric around the squad going forward, well, I'd personally take three. But if it's a straight shootout, and if I'm Southgate, I'm picking Toney. Yeah, definitely. Well, off last night's performance anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't forget that Watkins, kind of before Unai Emery came to Aston Villa, Watkins was a very frustrating player. Like he's never really hitting these heights, and the system at Villa is just really set up for him, isn't it? And he's not going to get that kind of dedicated following and tactical setup to him with England. Whereas I feel like Ivan Toney can just slot in.
Yeah, it is. And on the topic of Ivan Toney, I've got an impromptu football trivia question for yourself, Dan. I know you like a bit of that. So Ivan Toney's goal against Belgium means there is now only one current Premier League club to have never had a player score for England whilst at their club. Can you name that one club out of 20?
Ooh. Right. Okay. Surely one at the bottom for you. Surely
it's not the side that I thought it had to be.
It would have to be Luton, but I'm feeling like it's not Luton.
Yeah, it's not that.
Okay. I'm going to go for Burnley.
It's Brighton.
Is it actually?
Yeah, it is. It's
wow,
Brighton.
I thought Welbeck would have had one.
No, he has scored goals, but he wasn't at Brighton at the time. So
wow.
Yeah, just Brighton and Luton Town. Obviously, I had to have a look into it because I thought, who has scored for England whilst at Luton Town? It was Paul Walsh in the 1983-84 season. Just before he was bought by Liverpool for 700 grand by Joe Fagan.
At Liverpool when he scored that goal.
Yeah. So did I.
Right, let's move on. I do want to get back away from the international football and not talk about it for a few months. Move back onto the Premier League, and we're straight into a long overdue title discussion with Manchester City versus Arsenal on Sunday. Sam, if there is a winner of this match, do you think they'll win the title?
Well, it's a big one, isn't it?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is. A City are 1 point behind Liverpool in second and Arsenal in first. So for me, if Arsenal win on Sunday, their title race isn't over. City have proved they can go on a ridiculous run of results and pip those competing against them in a title race. So it would be daft to just call the title off, call their title defence off if Arsenal get the win on the weekend. And likewise, if Man City thump Arsenal, that isn't it in terms of deciding when the Premier League crown ends up, although it is a very good indicator, especially considering maybe the fixture difficulty of what's left. But I think it's far too early for that. But it's probably wise pointing out before Arsenal head to the Etihad that they have a really dismal record in this fixture. City have won 12 of their last 13 Premier League games against Arsenal, although that one exception was the 1-0 Arsenal win at the Emirates in the reverse fixture this season. So if anything, that should give Arsenal a little bit of belief coming into this fixture on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do want to talk about the title race more generally, just to start things off before we move on to the match. So looking at the fixtures, as you said, there are some pretty tough fixtures, especially for Arsenal. The Premier League put out a list of fixtures for all three teams just this week and looked at the average points for their opponents. And Arsenal's opponents in their last 9 games, have an average of 41.8 points, whereas Manchester City's 40.7 and Liverpool's 38.4. Do you think that will affect things? The fact that Arsenal have got to go to Manchester United, they've got to play Chelsea, they've got to go to City, obviously. Whereas, I mean, looking at Liverpool's fixtures, they look quite straightforward, most of them. Obviously, there'll be a few, they've got to go to Old Trafford as well and go to Villa Park. But, yeah, do you think the fixtures will affect things?
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably how I see it. I think City's got the easiest fixtures on paper. Liverpool just after them, and I think Arsenal's got the hardest schedule coming up. Tottenham are going to have a big say. They play all three teams, and obviously the North London derby factor. Like, this fixture is extra charged, and I think that it makes it a little bit more difficult for Arsenal, of course, in that fixture specifically. Also, City away on Sunday, of course. United away, Villa at the Emirates. And then also, probably should mention both Wolves and Brighton away as well for Arsenal. So those two fixtures will be no walk in the park. Obviously, Brighton aren't at their best this season, but Wolves are playing pretty well under Gary O'Neill. So looking at the three, Arsenal's is definitely the hardest. So yeah, in terms of picking a dog out of the three, then I'd probably swerve Arsenal if I was going to be honest. Just looking at the fixtures and considering they're going to City on Sunday. If I was to pick someone to win the title now, Arsenal would be second or third on my list, definitely.
Okay, interesting.
What do you reckon about the running? Do you see it similarly, or? Yes,
logically, yes, I do see. You can't ignore the last 5 seasons or 6 seasons with Manchester City's dominance. The fact that they do go on these runs, especially the last 2-3 months of the season, very much within their capacity to do it again. And looking at the fixtures, they are quite kind to them. Obviously, all 3 clubs are still in Europe. There's going to be Champions League quarterfinals, Europa League quarterfinals, semi-finals maybe, final maybe to consider. Liverpool and City still in the FA Cup as well. So that's all to think about. Sorry, Liverpool aren't in the FA Cup, are they? City are in the FA Cup. They're not anymore. Yeah, City's still in the FA Cup, so that's to contend with as well. It's very hard to say. I do think Arsenal have a decent chance. These fixtures are quite tough looking at them on paper, especially that North London derby that you mentioned, Sam. I think looking at the way the fixtures will pan out, Arsenal will play about 5 matches in 2 weeks before the Spurs game. I think the way it works out, Spurs have about 2 weeks off before that match.
Bloody hell.
Yes, if things fall the way they're expected to fall, mostly because of rearranged fixtures from the FA Cup, it could have handed Spurs a really big advantage in that match. But again,
throwing the question back at you, Dan, do you think, obviously it's too early to write anyone off, but do you think the winner of Sunday's match wins the league this season?
If City win it, yes.
Yeah.
If City win it, yes. But if Arsenal win it, I think it opens things up even more. I am sort of favouring City at the moment, but if Arsenal can win it, it does open things up. And with a lot of these fixtures, they may look easy on paper, but as we saw with Arsenal last season, 1 or 2 bad results and a game against Southampton at home looks tough. A game against West Ham away looks really tough if you're on a bad run of form. They look fine on paper now, taking them individually, but an injury, tired legs from a Europa League quarter-final, semi-final, tired legs from a Champions League quarter, semi-final, these fixtures start to look a hell of a lot tougher. And you say Tottenham will have a big impact on the title. They've got a fantastic record against Manchester City, going back years and years. So wouldn't be surprised if they can pick up a result there. And if you look at City this season, they haven't been anywhere near their best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we always expect them to go on the run, but eventually they won't. It's not bound to happen. They've lost a lot of quality compared to last season.
They are get-attable this season, that's for sure. And if you look at maybe what's happened over the international break, Kyle Walker went off injured for England. How injured is he? I'm not too sure, but it looks like John Stones will probably miss out on Sunday, if you had to guess. So if those two are out, Arsenal travel to the Etihad with a fully fit squad. So if they're ever gonna, you know, in with real momentum and in really good form, so if there is ever a moment where Arsenal are going to trump City at the Etihad, maybe this weekend's it. And I don't think, obviously we've not really mentioned them, we really can't write off Liverpool because they go into Brighton at home after the international break this weekend. And if they put a resounding victory up, if they put a few past Brighton, then they're into Sheffield United the next week at home. Then they face United at Old Trafford the week after that. And if they're on a bit of a run themselves and they can get a result over the line at Old Trafford, something they couldn't do in the FA Cup a couple of weeks ago, then that leads them on to a stretch of games where they're all really winnable for a Liverpool team in full swing. So definitely can't be writing Liverpool off. However, I've said it on a few podcasts and it's just so boring. It's such a boring, like,
do you think City are
such a
win the
boring
title,
angle. Just City, yeah, I do. I think City are too good. They've got experience. They've done this for the last few seasons and come out the other end with a Premier League crown. So I can't really overlook them, but you also can't overlook this Liverpool side and also Arsenal playing the way. It's just going to be a great title race, and for a neutral, it's going to be brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to it. How many games we got left? Like 8 or so?
I think it's 9.
8 or 9?
9
yeah,
each.
it's going to be brilliant, and I'd imagine this isn't the last time we're going to speak about it on this podcast, and I'm looking forward to it.
Probably not. But let's bring it back to Sunday's fixture and Manchester City versus Arsenal. Do you have any early thoughts, any early predictions on the match? I know we spoke about earlier in the week. It's not one you really want to bet on, but what are your early thoughts coming into the game?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not going to bet on it because I've got no idea what's going to happen. But if you just look at the pricing, City are 1.85 favourites on Bet365, Arsenal at 4.00, and the draw at 3.80. So City went off as 2.40 favourites in October, with Arsenal at 2.90. Martinelli with the late winner on that day to get Arsenal the win. If I had to approach this game, Arsenal double chance, maybe. Yeah. Just because you get 2 results on your side in a match where it's a pick'em for any of the... For a City win, draw, Arsenal, it's genuinely a pick'em. I have no idea. So to get 2 results on your side at a price near evens, 1.96, I think that's good. In terms of goals, I don't know if it's going to be a 6-goal thriller or we're going to have a 0-0. I don't know. I could make a really good case now for it being 1-0 City, 0-0, or 4-3 Arsenal. So you could, couldn't you? The way either team can find the net, but also the way either team can really shut games down. Arsenal are looking really good at the back. We know City's got that in their locker too. So yeah, it's a tough one. If an early goal goes in, could descend into chaos. If we get to half time at 0-0, it could end up 0-0 at 90 minutes. Obviously, I'm not really kind of putting my cards on the table. We're very much sitting on the fence, but that's just how I'm feeling about the game, and it's probably why I'm not really going to approach the game approach the weekend with a bet. What about you, Dan? Has anything stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I did have down an Arsenal double chance as well. I've also got down no on BTTS, which I think is probably a pretty decent angle in. I'm looking at the unders more so than the overs in terms of goals. I think it'll be very, very similar to the match at the Emirates back in October, November time, 1-0 to Arsenal. I think Arsenal have just got an ability to nullify teams that they've never had before. And you mentioned previous matches, you mentioned Arsenal's terrible record. Looking back at some of those teams that Arsenal took to the Etihad, I'm not surprised they got thumped 4-0, 5-0, 6-0 down the years. I mean, 2 seasons ago, right? I'm just going to read out Arsenal's back 6 because they played a back 5 and they had Bernd Leno in goals, right? Cedric Suarez playing at right wing back, right? Yeah. Callum Chambers, right centre back. Rob Holding in the centre of the 3. Sead Kolasinac, left centre back.
It's left centre back.
Left centre back. And then Kieran Tierney, left wing back. Granit Xhaka and Martin Odegaard keeping the midfield. Granit Xhaka got sent off after 35 minutes.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
It sounds about right, yeah. But this is just such a better team now. They've got...
Those 3 centre-backs
they don't fill you with confidence today.
Go into the Etihad, like, you have to lose if you're lined up with Kolasinac, Holding,
Chambers, yeah. But now you look at Gabriel, Saliba, with Declan Rice in front of them, probably Jorginho in front of them.
It's a different ball game, isn't it? And I was going to ask you, actually, I've got a note down here, because from the outside looking in, I've been fairly surprised at his involvement. Obviously, injuries have helped. But what do you think of Jakub Kiwior, our left back? Like, it didn't look like he was going to have much of an impact in the running, but now he's probably going to play every game. If Walker's fit and if Foden's fit, he's got a big job on his hands. So do you think? How do you think he'll do?
It's an interesting one because Arsenal have most of the success last season was because of Zinchenko playing left back and he'd sort of step into midfield,
drifting,
be the extra man. Ben White, a right back, could slot in and become a right centre back, and they'd switch to a back 3 in possession. Then now things are a bit different. Zinchenko's been in and out of form. He's been injured. He hasn't done very well when he's come in.
Tomiyasu too.
Tomiyasu's been injured. Jurriën Timber did his ACL on the first day, and he looked like a really promising player as well. But they've had to adapt, and they did try it with Kiwior as a sort of inverted fullback back in December. Away game at Fulham, which they lost, and Kiwior was awful. He just looked so uncomfortable. He's quite tall. I mean, he played for Poland last night. I was watching him. He did quite well playing in a similar position. He's just so gangly when he's doing things he's not comfortable with.
Yeah.
But they've settled the team around him now, and rather than tucking into an inverted fullback position, he moves in and becomes a third centre back essentially. And that's the benefit of having Ben White, who can do 3-4 different roles as a fullback and as a defender. Now Ben White is the one underlapping. He's the one moving in and inverting.
It's really important, isn't he? Moves opponents around a lot over
and
on that
well rested after the international break, so
ideal.
should help him in this match. But I've been impressed with Kiwior. He's done well coming in. He really should have played in the game last season at the Etihad. Obviously, William Saliba picked up an injury, missed the last 10-11 matches, I think. And Arteta was hesitant to bring in Kiwior, who's only joined the club in January. He brought in Rob Holding into the team. Very different profile of defender. Didn't work at all. And as we saw at the Etihad, it was just completely outclassed, Arsenal were. But in that match as well, Jorginho probably should have played in the midfield. Arsenal didn't look settled. It didn't look right. And they just got the run around by Kevin De Bruyne. Whereas I think now, this match, Arteta won't make the same mistakes. Kiwior will play, Jorginho will play in the midfield, and Arsenal will be a lot more settled defensively.
Can I have a prediction? Obviously, I've flirted with it, sat on the fence, and not really offered too much in terms of actual predictions. So could you be the one to maybe?
You want me to put my neck on the line for once?
Yeah, instead of me, that would be ideal, please.
I think it'll be a 1 goal either way.
Okay.
I think if City are going to score and are going to win the match, they're going to have to do it quite quickly. I think they're going to race out the blocks and try and get a goal in the first 30 minutes. If they do, they'll win the match. If they don't, I think Arsenal will win the match. Because I think Arsenal can hold a defensive line for the first time ever. I mean, they've played City twice this season in the Community Shield and in the reverse fixture. Erling Haaland hasn't had a shot in 180 minutes of football. He's just been completely nullified by Saliba and Gabriel, by Declan Rice in front of him.
Is that something which should scare Arsenal supporters? Maybe.
It's either a good sign or a sign that he'll just be extra determined to get one off.
It's either a really good sign or like he might have a pretty big point to prove.
Maybe, but I mean, he's not the same. He doesn't have the same fear factor that he had last season. Obviously, you can't ignore Erling Haaland, but he's nowhere near as lethal or threatening as he was last season, I don't think.
No.
Can't write him off, of course. And then you got Kevin De Bruyne, who has had, international breakitis and missed a couple of matches, but he'll be back ready for this.
There's been a lot of that going around, isn't there?
Yeah, it's funny.
It's the time of year for it, I think.
Yeah, when you play 2 friendlies in March, yeah. But that was another bet I liked as well. Kevin De Bruyne to score or assist at 2.05. He's got a fantastic record against Arsenal. I think that's a pretty good bet on Bet365. You can get those prices. So yeah, I just think Arsenal are a lot more settled defensively than they ever have been moving into a game at the Etihad, and it sets them up to be a threat and to frustrate City. And as we've seen, whenever City have played this season, you can get at them in ways that you haven't before, especially in the fullback areas. I think they've been exposed quite a few times. So yeah, I'm kind of.
Well, I think
I might go 1-0 Arsenal.
That's bold. I love it. If Walker and Stones don't start, I think it's a leg up for Arsenal. It'll be interesting to see if they're on the team sheet. I don't think Stones will be.
The injuries, if Walker isn't playing and you've got, I don't know, a Kanji right back maybe coming up against Gabriel Martinelli's pace if he's fit.
Yeah.
You'd have to.
Yeah, it would be one of their 7 foot centre backs playing out wide, wouldn't it?
Just chuck one in, yeah.
Yeah, one of their 6 or 7.
But
yeah, so Arsenal, I had a look. They are fully fit, aren't they? Well, bar Zinchenko, bar the left back situation. I think that's, in terms of your starters who you'd want on the pitch, I think they're fully fit.
Maybe. I think they are leaning towards that. I think it'll depend. There's a few late fitness checks, I think, for Bukayo Saka, who didn't play for England.
Of course, yeah.
Precautionary. Gabriel Martinelli had
precautionary.
Precautionary. Gabriel Martinelli, I think he had a really deep cut in the Champions League match away. He'd booted a stud basically and had a big gash into his foot. So that's been taken a bit of time to heal. And then Gabriel as well didn't play for Brazil. Precautionary,
Yeah.
So we'll see, but it's looking like it will be pretty much. I'd imagine it'll be pretty much full strength for both teams. So just on the same topic, Sam, I do want to bring in the BETSiE projections for this match because obviously it's such a big one in the title race. Let's look at what would happen. Run the simulations based on a Manchester City win, a draw, and an Arsenal win, just to see how it would affect the BETSiE projections for the title. So at the moment, BETSiE is favouring Arsenal in a way that no other projection model is. A lot of that is down to their fantastic defensive record, their XG results in recent matches. I was looking back, actually, off topic, but Arsenal have won 8 of their last 8 matches, right? They have conceded an XGA in those 8 games of 3.14 in their last 8 since the turn of the year.
It's not bad, is it?
Not bad at all.
Considering that includes Liverpool.
That includes Liverpool.
Emirates too.
Yeah. I was looking back in those exact same fixtures last season, replacing Burnley and Sheffield United with the sides that finished in 19th and 20th last season. They conceded, in those 8 fixtures, they conceded 10.13 XGA last season. So that number has shrunk. So
it's a big jump, isn't it?
It's a very big jump, and I think it's part of the reason why BETSiE is favouring Arsenal at the moment in the title race. BETSie's given Arsenal a 47.5% chance of winning the title, with City down at 16.10.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realise they were that short on the projections.
Yeah. Very, very short according to BETSiE. Liverpool taking up the remaining 36.4% of that. So if Arsenal win, according to BETSiE, that number will jump up to 67.2%. So 2/3 chance of Arsenal winning the title if they beat Man City on Sunday, according to BETSiE, with City's chances going down to 5.3%.
She's brave, isn't she, this BETSiE?
She's bold. She's
not
bold,
sure
the old girl. If there's a draw, Arsenal would retain their favourite status, and it would open the door a little bit to Liverpool, who would jump from 36% to 39% possibility of winning the title. If Manchester City win, their chances, City's chances, would jump from 16.10% to 35.4%. They'd become second favourites behind Liverpool with 37%. So a City win would really open it up to a three-way showdown. Pretty similar percentages according to the old girl.
So yeah, basically say that this match is absolutely massive, and whoever wins probably takes it.
Yeah, which, I mean, who'd have known? You know, first versus third. Who could have seen that one coming? Let's move on to this week's tips from Sam. And Sam, it's a bumper weekend of action with Easter, games on Good Friday, on Saturday in the Premier League, and then more on Monday. What are you starting with for your first tip?
Yeah, brilliant. Easter weekend, games on a Friday, games on a Monday, Premier League on a Saturday, a few Premier League games dotted around on Sunday, match of the day, etc. It's the best weekend of football, one of them in the campaign. So that's exciting. In terms of my first bet, Ipswich minus 0.50 Asian handicap at 1.98. They're away in Blackburn in the Championship. So Blackburn struggling of late in terms of performances. They've won just once versus Stoke in 2024. They're 17th, but they're not safe. We spoke about it last week on our Championship discussion. They have a horrendous run-in to see out the season. They play most of the big boys, so every game is of huge importance to them now, and Ipswich are in the same boat. They cannot afford to let up, especially if they're to get automatic promotion, as we also spoke about last week. That's looking more likely by every passing weekend, considering Leicester's fall from grace. I think they're 1 point behind Leicester as it stands in third. The emphatic 6-0 Ipswich win against Sheffield Wednesday before the international break was the perfect response to that late Cardiff comeback the previous week for Ipswich. And that is the only game where Ipswich have failed to win in their last 8. So they come into this fixture supremely confident in a really good run of form, where Blackburn, not so much. McKenna will have his side champing at the bit to kickstart the run-in with a victory as they hunt down Premier League football. Near evens for me feels like something worth taking on when you look at the current state of both teams. Ipswich have got 22 points from their last 30. So this is a side Blackburn need to be really wary of. And how Blackburn are playing at the minute, yeah, it feels like... It feels like a no-brainer for me at those prices.
Yeah, it's one win in 17 for Blackburn in the Championship. Pretty dire form. Sam, just off topic, would you take those in the relegation odds at the moment? They're at about 5s. Is that a bit long, or?
Potentially, yeah, potentially.
With that fixture list coming up as well.
With that fixture list, it's a very, I would not put anyone off that bet. The only thing is there are 3 or 4 teams down there, which can 5 or 6 of them be relegated, because it feels like they're all in with a really good chance. That's the only major concern for me, is that there are a fair few teams that may be getting relegated. I've obviously picked out Plymouth Argyle as the one at the same price as Blackburn. So if I was to choose any, it would be Plymouth Argyle, I think. But Blackburn, okay, they won't be far away.
Maybe if they were a bit longer, you'd be looking for them. But as I say, 1 win in 17 Championship matches for Blackburn, but they've proven to be quite capable of scoring goals, especially at home. They've found the net in each of their last 9 league matches at home. Is that a concern for you in this bet?
I suppose it has to be a slight concern. You've got to take that on board. But sometimes I think, like, if we can get bogged down in maybe trying to be a bit clever and outsmart the bookies, when you look at certain games, sometimes there's just a price that just stands out for all the right reasons. Like, from watching both a lot recently, it's clear Blackburn are way off it. The draw in Middlesbrough last time out is a start, but I'm not really having Borough this season when the onus is on them to control fixtures and break down teams. They're much better when that script is flipped on its head. So, yeah, Good draw, but I'm not overly surprised they got it away in Middlesbrough. If Sammy Szmodics doesn't get on the score sheet, if he's not looking lively in and around the box, if he can be stopped, it's really hard to see where the goals are coming from for Blackburn. And if you counter that with Ipswich right now, it's night and day. There's so many players in that team who can muster something from nothing. Omari Hutchison is coming into his own now. Kiefer Moore is a superb striker at this level. Obviously, he was playing for Wales last night at international level against Poland. So, he's really good, especially at championship level. Nathan Broadhead, brilliant option in the championship. Ali Halmadi and Jeremy Sarmiento came off the bench last game against Sheffield Wednesday, and they'd both be starting performers in plenty of championship squads. So that's, a wealth of riches in terms of goal scoring talent in Ipswich, and Blackburn don't have that right now. So at 199, it feels like one of those bets that is just screaming, like, come and get me. Blackburn needs wins, which is a concern. They're not awful at home, so that's a concern. But Ipswich also need wins, and they're desperate for 3 points, and they're really good away from home. So they've won 3 of the last 4 with that late Cardiff turnaround, the outlier. I just feel much, much more confident siding with Ipswich at evens than I would do back in Blackburn or a draw. So I'll take that.
Fair enough. Unfortunately, Sam, the price has dropped from 1.99 to 1.98. So is that something you still want to take?
I think maybe I think we'll take that, just about.
Take it. Okay, so we're going for Ipswich minus 0.5 in the Asian handicap rather than the 1x2, just because the odds are slightly different, slightly better. So, Ipswich minus 0.5 versus Blackburn is Sam's first bet. Sticking with the championship for your second one and this Good Friday fixture list, Sam has Sheffield Wednesday host Swansea City.
One I'm not as comfortable with, not the best way to start a little passage of reasoning for a bet, but it's Sheffield Wednesday 0.0 Asian handicap at 1.82. They've got Swansea City coming to Sheffield on Saturday. So approaching the last stage of the season, I think it's really important that we don't subconsciously conform to the thinking that because Team A needs a win and the other doesn't, Team A will therefore win the game. It doesn't really work like that. But despite that, in this case, I think that really should be noted because these are the games that Wednesday need to capitalise on if staying in the division is going to be a reality. Swansea are now coasting away from the relegation picture in the Championship, and I think they'll do enough easily to be comfortably safe. Therefore, the onus is really on Sheffield Wednesday here. And if they turn up alongside that Hillsborough crowd, which I'm guessing will be buoyant and full, and they put in a shift like they have done so regularly under Danny Rowe recently, then I expect them to do just enough not to lose this game at a bare minimum. So with the Asian handicap, it's money back if it's a draw, making that 1.82 price at home. In a game they have to win, it makes it a really attractive one for me.
Okay. This is maybe one I'm not as confident in, especially at those prices. I mean, Swansea are starting to find a bit of form. Played well against Cardiff a couple of weeks ago before the international break. Honestly, one of the best performances I've seen them put in for a long time. But I do understand you just can't really fully trust Swansea away from home. They can't keep the goals out. They've had one clean sheet in about 10 away matches in the Championship. That was a bit of an outlier against Hull back in February.
Yeah, very good against Cardiff, and that's a Cardiff side who are tricky opponents. I think Swansea did really well to navigate that task. Obviously, the magnitude of a South Wales derby too, so top marks to Swansea for that. And top marks to Luke Williams, by the way, who was out necking shots with supporters out in Swansea after the game.
Yes, he was.
Rate that massively. I didn't see you in any of the videos though, Dan. Which
Funny enough, I think it's a rite of passage for Swansea City managers, because I remember Russell Martin beating Cardiff in the South Wales derby a few years ago. And I was out that night as well. Went out to a pub, and him and all his backroom staff were there. Yeah, they were all.
I love that.
The pub was bouncing.
But
it was just it was Martin and all of his coaching staff were making the noise. Just sat on a booth at the back, absolutely throwing them back. Yeah.
So great performance. And if you look at Wednesday on the other hand, which maybe conforms to the thinking that this is maybe a bit of a dodgy bet. They've conceded 8 in their last 2 games, and they were unable to score in each of the last 2 matches. Though those games were against Leeds and Ipswich, so maybe we can let them off a little bit. Although that 6-0 hammering away to Ipswich is alarming. Those aren't the fixtures that will keep Sheffield Wednesday in the Championship, though. So got to bear that in mind. This game on Friday is, but it's those fixtures, those recent fixtures, and Swansea's recent form that presents us with this 1.82 price. So it is what it is. But Before those Leeds and Ipswich losses, though, notably, Sheffield Wednesday had won 4 games on the bounce and 5 games in 6. And for a team at that end of the championship, it's not normal. So that suggests to me that maybe they're in a bit of a false position in terms of form and how Danny Rowe's got them playing. So we should bear that in mind. Yeah, they've won 5 in the last 6. And a loss to Leicester City was the only mishap in that stretch. So it suggests to me, if you look at the Leeds and Ipswich games too, that when they play the big boys, the gap in quality is evident, but they really fancy themselves against the rest and they've got it in them to get a result. So with that in mind, and with the bit between their teeth needing a result, Wednesday to at least avoid defeat in front of a packed Hillsborough on Good Friday, it's an attractive proposition despite their place in the table. And I can see them clicking into that gear they found in the stretch before the Leeds game. Hopefully they can harness that and see out a victory. There is one big concern for me, though, Dan, one big worry, and that is Ian Poveda is an injury doubt. He's been really good for Sheffield Wednesday. He provides a spark for them out on the wing, and he's able to beat a man and conjure something from nothing, the kind of player that teams at the bottom end of the championship, Plymouth Argyle, for example, would be desperate for in their side right now. And his potential absence has actually led me down a bit of a bizarre rabbit hole. So I thought I may as well share my findings. So
Let's see what you got.
Ian Poveda, I've done a really small amount of research, so I don't know, probably about 5 minutes, but I'm 99% confident that Ian Carlo Poveda Ocampo is the only Ian to have ever played for Colombia. He must be. He got 2 caps against Mexico and Venezuela last season when he was playing for Leeds. And I think maybe we could go one step further and guess that he's the only Ian to play for a South American nation at international level. Do you have any idea?
I don't know of any other Ians who played for Colombia or Uruguay.
So
pretty confidently say, or maybe there's like a Brazilian one-name footballer. You know, like you've got the Freds and the Malcolms. Maybe there is an Ian knocking about.
I think there must be an Ian knocking about. And I was really intrigued at this. So I kind of carried on looking. So I found 3 lads currently playing in South America.
Okay.
I'm going to leave the best till last, okay?
Right.
First up, Ian Subiabre. Probably butchered that. But he's a 17-year-old left winger at River Plate. Sounds pretty exciting, other than he's called Ian. And the next one, Ian Lucas at Goiás in Brazil. He's a 21-year-old central midfielder, neither have international caps just yet. But interestingly, Ian Subiabra is considered one of the best in his age group in Argentina. So he's got 16 caps for Argentina under 17. So he might be one for the future.
He
but
might break the Ian duck.
He may. My favourite, though, is a 27-year-old, 5'7", diminutive left back who plays for San Miguel in Argentina, which is also a great name for a football club, by the way. He has never been capped for Argentina, but his name is Ian Escobar. Oh, that was brilliant. What a name that is. Brilliant. So he's knocking about in Argentina. He's quite old now, so I don't think he's going to get a cap. But I suppose, if you're listening and you know of an Ian playing for an obscure nation, South America or not, like I am genuinely interested. So leave us a comment with your most obscure Ian, and that'll make my week. So, yeah. And anyway, Sheffield Wednesday, 0.0 Asian handicap. That's what I'm going for.
Quite the rabbit hole, Sam. So, moving on to your third tip. Onto League One for this one. It's the final one of Friday's slate in the EFL. And Sam, you're back for another bite at Lincoln City. Yeah,
it's all downhill from now. I don't have any more Ian rabbit holes, but I'm going for Lincoln minus 0.50 Asian handicap at 1.97. They're at home to Leyton Orient, and it feels like a similar bet to the Ipswich one. A team in really good form against a team not necessarily out of form, but maybe not at the levels that Lincoln City are. It's just, another standout price for me this weekend. I initially had Lincoln minus 0.25 Asian handicap jotted down. That was at 1.82, but money's come for Lincoln since I started preparing bets for this podcast, so that's gone. So next up, Lincoln, 0.5 Asian handicap. I'm happy with that. I think obviously don't have the reassurance of half stakes back of a draw, but that's fine. The assignment for Lincoln here is tougher on paper than in previous weeks where they blew Cambridge and Bristol Rovers away, scoring 5 and 6. Obviously, we won a bet a couple of weeks ago off of them. But before that, they did dispatch Barnsley 5-1 as well, when Barnsley are sat in a playoff spot. So Leyton Orient in 10th, 5 points off playoffs. For me, there's no reason for this Lincoln side to not perform in a similar fashion or to be, scared when coming up against Leyton Orient. Orient have done brilliantly this season. They were promoted from League Two last term, so to be in with a genuine shot at the playoffs is a testament to Richie Wellens and his squad. Dissecting recent fixtures, a 1-0 win away at Stevenage is a standout result. However, that is a Stevenage team that is faltering at present. They've just gone down 2-0 to bottom dwellers Carlisle last weekend before clawing it back to 2-2. So maybe Orient's 1-0 win away at Stevenage isn't the best result in the world, looking at it now. And before the Stevenage fixture, Orient drew at home to a really, really poor Port Vale side who had taken 3 points from a possible 36 in the 12 fixtures before they come up against Orient. So they only managed 8 shots in that game, not good enough from Orient. And before that, they had back-to-back losses against Wigan and Bristol Rovers, who are both comfortably ambling around mid-table, ready to get their deck chairs out for the summer. So for me, we've got a really good Lincoln City side, really good form at home, scoring truckloads of goals and not really conceding many at all, which has been the hallmark of this Lincoln City side all season long. It feels like a good price, and it's one I wouldn't be surprised was a little shorter come kickoff.
Yeah, I like that bet. You mentioned they haven't conceded too many at home. I think they're about 500 minutes they've played at home without conceding in League One.
Oh,
so
that's not bad, is it?
Yeah, pretty good record. Feel good about that bet. Again, going for the Asian handicap over the 1x2 just because the odds are a little better for whatever reason. Just happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe it's worth saying something about that point. If it's like a sizable gap, it's worth going for the Asian handicap. But if it's only like a point or two out with Bet365, it's probably worth going for the full-time result because you get that early payout, get paid out if you go 2 goals up. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, if we're looking at maybe a 1.99, but it's 1.90 full-time result, probably worth taking the Asian.
Okay, yeah, good little tidbit. Fourth and final bet, Sam. You're going back again to Ipswich, but this one's on the Monday night game as they take on Southampton. Tell us about that one. Yeah,
so I wanted to get a Monday fixture in the pod as well. And this, for me, just, well, like the other two, really. Like the other last two bets, Lincoln and Ipswich, just stood out like a sore thumb. We've got Ipswich versus Southampton, both teams to score in over 2.5 goals at 2.05. So looking at the lay of the land in the Championship, Southampton are 12 points ahead of 6th place for Norwich with 2 games in hand. Playoffs are pretty much locked in for them now, but this Southampton group and Russell Martin will think automatics is still a possibility with their 2 games in hand, so I expect them to really go for it here when the opportunity arises. And if we look at recent form, Southampton have just won 4-2 and 4-3 in their previous 2 games. They lost 3-0 to Liverpool in the FA Cup at Anfield, but I was amazed that they didn't grab 1 or 2. They looked really dangerous and that they should have got on the score sheet themselves. And that was that was after 2-1 losses at home to Millwall and Hull. So the Saints aren't watertight at the back. We've seen in recent weeks that Ipswich are also susceptible when facing their own goal. And Ipswich let 3 goals in just over a month ago at home to the worst side in the league in Rotherham. So including that game, both teams to score an over 2.5 has landed in their last 4 out of 6 matches. I think we should be able to count on Ipswich to score here. And also, I think we should be counting on Southampton to find the net as well. Yeah, Southampton have the highest BTTS percentage of their matches this season in the Championship. 2/3 of their games have seen both teams score. These two have also got the highest average goals tally in the Championship in each of their respective matches. Ipswich's games are averaging 3.39 and Southampton's are averaging 3.33. So definitely adding a bit of fuel to your bet there, Sam. Yeah, I mean, you're getting your money's worth, aren't you, if you've got a season ticket at Portman Road or up in Southampton. Yeah, that's not bad at all. I'm not surprised, though. I'm guessing they're right up there with maybe Blackburn and Plymouth, like a quad of teams that witness a lot of goals, and that's because all four can pack a punch. But not only that, and that's probably waned a bit for Blackburn and Argyle. They've had a bit of fall off, but all four of them has had spells in the season of scoring a lot of goals. But they're all four of them are also susceptible at the back, so that's why the goal averages are much higher than maybe other teams in the division. A stat that I've got in front of me is that Ipswich have scored 2 or more goals more times than anyone in the division in 26 out of 38 games this season. But additionally, only 6 of the 23 other championship teams have conceded 2 or more in a game more frequently than Ipswich. So it just goes to show that Ipswich games can really
Basketball
descend
stuff
into something quite interesting.
Yeah.
So here, I expect both to score. They've got the forward players to do so. And if that happens, it could turn into, a bit of a spectacle. What we really don't want to happen is for this to be 0-0 at half-time, for there to be no early goal, and it to turn into a really cagey affair when the importance of the fixture ramps up by the minute. That's what we really don't want. If we can have a goal in the first 20 half hour, I think we're probably onto a winner here. I'm more so having a punt here on neither defence being able to shut out the 2 attacks on offer. And if that's the correct train of thought, then it should be right, I think.
Yeah, no, you were spot on as well earlier about Plymouth and Blackburn being right up there. Those are 4 of the top 5. You're also missing Norwich City, who have the 3rd highest average goal tally in the championship for this season. The only problem with this bet, Sam, that I saw when I was researching it was that this bet wouldn't have landed in any of the last 4 meetings between Ipswich and Southampton. Obviously, some of them were a long time ago, going back to about 2015.
How long?
2015.
Okay. Yeah, well, they've both, obviously Southampton have dropped into the Premier League and Ipswich have gone up, so it must have been fairly long ago. So
it was a while. They were in the FA Cup as well.
But they did play each other earlier on in the season, obviously, and it was 1-0. So I think it's fair enough to bring up the head-to-head details up. But yeah, I just suppose, just to echo what I've previously said, we've got 2 teams here, and it's fair to say attack is the best form of defence for both sides at the minute. So I can't see this turning into a 0-0 or a 1-0, famous last words. But having watched the game in maybe start of the season, August, September, there was, although the expected goals would suggest otherwise, and it would suggest that 1-0 was about right, there were a fair few good chances in that game. I remember Chaplin lobbed the keeper from outside the box, hit the crossbar, come back out to, I think it was Hurst who missed from like the penalty spot, probably should have scored or taken a touch. And Che Adams had maybe 1 or 2 one-on-ones too. So yeah, on another day that ends 2-1, 3-0, whatever it may be, and we're probably looking at this fixture maybe a little bit more favourably in terms of this bet. What I will say is I'd probably be more comfortable taking the over 2.75 goals line when that comes out. That's not available at the minute. So we've only got the both teams to score an over 2.5 goals price on offer at 2.05. They're probably going to be around the same price. I would take the Asian line just because either side has it in them to go 3, 4, 5-0. So just in case, take the Asian line. But I wouldn't put anyone off this bet, and that's exactly why I'm putting it up as a podcast bet. I think there's going to be goals, and I think they're going to be shared around. It should be a really good game. So I think it's on telly as well. So if you've got a chance, give it a watch.
Yeah, one on Monday night. Yeah, I think you probably have to wait until after Friday's matches before the Asian lines come out for this one. Obviously got to get through the next round of fixtures if you do want to go with the 2.75. But that completes Sam's 4th bet. It's Ipswich versus Southampton, both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. That's at 2.05 odds on Bet365. So Sam, 4 bets. Singles.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to go for a 4-unit fourfold. No, I'm joking.
Really?
No. 4 singles, unit
Radio
each.
Silencer.
Yeah, we'll go for a unit each. Obviously, I'm guessing you knew that anyway. Yeah, I really like the look of them, to be honest. And there's a lot that jumped out at me this weekend. So hopefully form and season trends continue and they all romp home. That'd be nice.
Yeah, let's see. Nice little Easter weekend. So just to run through all of Sam's bets for this week, we've got Ipswich minus 0.5 in the Asian handicap market versus Blackburn on Friday in the Championship. Sticking with Championship on Friday, it's Sheffield Wednesday plus 0 in the Asian handicap market versus Swansea City. Then down to League One and Lincoln City minus 0.5 versus Leyton Orient. Then we close things off on Easter Monday with over 2.5 goals and both teams to score in Ipswich versus Southampton in the Championship. As ever, if you are going to be using some of the tips from the show, then please gamble responsibly, only betting what you can afford to lose. If you have any spare time as well, we'd very much appreciate a review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. As a brand new show, it helps us so much with visibility. Let's wrap it up. Thanks as ever to Sam Ingram.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for me. We'll be back next week.